Hey, what's going on, everybody? You're listening to Sane Show, the show about nothing and everything. I'm your host, Cliff, and today I have a really special guest joining us today. I have former Hollywood agent, producer, and executive. Some of his previous clients include Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ray Romano, Kevin James, Chuck Russell, some of our favorites, and many others. He's produced The Call starring Halle Berry and was instrumental in putting together The Shawshank Redemption, The Mask, Terminator 3, among many other films. He is one of the founders of Big Three Hollywood Agency, United Talent Agency, also known as UTA, and is now the CEO of Roberry Media, Robert Stein. How are you doing, Robert?
Hi, fine, and how are you today, Cliff?
I am well. I'm not going to lie. I'm surprised I nailed that.
You did great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come on the Sane Show. I really appreciate it. I'm really
Well,
excited to have you on and have the conversation that we're going to have today.
thank you. I'm honored. Should be fun.
Awesome. Really quick, before I jump into it, I want to take and shout out all of our listeners in all 60 plus countries around the world. Thank you guys. I love you guys for continuing to like, share, and subscribe to the Sane Show. It means a lot. I really appreciate it. I love you guys. And if you're listening and you don't already follow us on social media, be sure to check us out on Instagram and Twitter at sane_show. That's sane, SANE_show. And then on Facebook, you can find us at Sane Show. Again, it's Sane Show on Facebook. So today we're going to be having a conversation about figuring it out. We're also going to have a conversation about agents. And then following those two segments, we're going to have an interview with you, Robert, so that
Okay.
the listeners and I can learn more about you, the things you do, and all the fun and exciting things that go along with that.
Great.
First segment, figure it out. This is one of my favorite things about you. In our first conversation, and you've said this quite a few times too, and a lot that you've done, you figured it out, right? And when I think a lot of my mind goes to skill versus will, right? And like I said, when we're figuring things out, oftentimes we don't have the skill, so we got to have the will to learn that skill or to learn whatever it is that we're trying to figure it out. And me personally, I don't think a lot of people nowadays, and this is me being biased, I don't think a lot of people really have that in them to want to figure things out. And I can think for myself that there's a lot of situations, even being a podcaster, like having to figure it out, navigating this industry, having to figure it out, how to get to this person or that person, how to pull this off, how to pull that off, and ultimately getting to that end goal. So really just want to have a conversation with you and get your thoughts on it when we talk about, again, figuring things out. Especially, again, you've had a lot of success. You're still very successful, and you figured a lot of things out for yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, thank you for that intro. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think your assessment is correct. I think oftentimes people feel that the proper skill set will help figure things out, and often they do. For me, I did not and could not learn in a classroom setting, so I didn't ever go to classrooms, college or high school or any of that stuff, didn't matriculate. So I was put in the position of trying to figure things out. Life is kind of interesting, and as much education as you can get is important, but it doesn't always tell you how to operate within the confines of day-to-day business. You have to be inventive and creative and kind of willful. I'm fond of saying that as a creator and a salesman more than anything else, because we're all salesmen of some part, even those who are creators.
Isn't that the truth?
We're all selling all day long. Even as an agent, this is my motto. All day long, you get no, 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 no. How about no? What do you think about no? I got a client, no. That's what happens all day long. If you're a creator, I wrote this script, no. I think it's really good, no. I want to play this role, no. All day long, the world throws no at you. Around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you get a maybe. The job is to take a no and turn it into a maybe, and a maybe into a yes.
Mm.
That's the job. That's the job we all have, no matter what it is that we do. Take a no, because that's what you're going to get. Turn it into a maybe. Turn the maybes into a yes. And what that requires is to kind of figure out why you're getting a no, or who can say yes, or who can say maybe, or because there's very few people who can say yes. Most people can say no. Almost 95% of the people you deal with in everyday transaction will be able to say no. They can't say yes. So the trick is to get that no, turn it into a maybe, and a maybe into a yes. And what that requires is, as you had said, a willfulness. You can't just stop because they say no. Well, that's just one person's opinion. I'll find another person who agrees with me, who at least will be open to it. And that's the kind of willfulness that I'm talking about when I say, you got to figure it out. You got to figure out who's the right guy to tell you what you want to hear and how you can get to where you want to get.
Hmm.
That's the game.
Yeah,
Anything.
that's so true. I'm just over here being a sponge right now. So
Okay.
in what you said is so much wisdom, and you really hit it on the head when you talk about, we're all salesmen in our own way. And it's so funny because I have a background in sales, from B2C. I've sold cars. I've done business sales, and I've even managed. And I was thinking about this last night. I said, my sales skills have been very critical in my success in the industry, because you got to have a will to make it in sales, one. And not give up, and be able to take no after no after no, and find a way to get to the yes, getting to the right people. And so it was all of what you said resonated with me. I mean, it hit home.
Right. I think the other piece of it is failure.
Yeah.
You gotta embrace failure. You gotta
Hmm.
look at failure as a pathway to success. That's what failure is. Failure is not the end. Failure is the beginning. When they say no or you fail, that's when you begin. There's a Muhammad Ali quote that I absolutely love, and I don't know if your listeners are familiar with it, or you are, Cliff, but Muhammad Ali quote that I really embrace, and it goes something like this: "Ain't no shame in getting knocked down, just shame in not getting back up." I love that
Mm.
quote. That's what we do every day. We get back up because all the world does is knock you down. Every now and then there's a shining light, but most of it's like getting knocked down and picking yourself up. And you got to love that. You got to embrace failure. You got to embrace the no and not be afraid of it. It's just on the pathway to success.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I've talked about with other guests on this show, especially when we talk about failures and learning to embrace. Because if you hit it out the park the first time, what did you learn versus not not getting it? You learn, and okay, I know where I need to do better next time, or how to go about this. I always like to go back to there was a $250,000 pitch to the Coca-Cola company that we didn't get. We came very close, we didn't get, and it hurt me. I'm not gonna lie, but I learned from it. And I look back at it, and it's like, yeah, I'm glad it wasn't supposed to happen that way, and there was a lot to be learned and taken from that. Go ahead.
No, you're preaching to the choir. I agree with you completely. You didn't get that one, you get the next one,
Right.
and you
Exactly.
probably did get the next one, right?
Yeah. I did, and a whole lot more.
Good. That's the game. That's the
It's,
game. And
yeah.
I think rather than, I'm not sure if I completely agree with you. I would phrase it slightly different about the current environment. People aren't willing to figure it out. I think I would rather say they're too willing to take a no. Because, okay, no, well, I guess that's not going to work. Well, that's the end of it if you want to play that game. I'm a believer in no, it's just a pathway to maybe.
You gave me something to think.
Okay.
You gave me a nugget to think on.
Okay, good. That's good. That's what I'm here for. So, if I had any words of wisdom, I would say toughen up your skin, put on your big boy pants or big girl pants, put on your fighting gloves, and get ready to face the world because no one's going to give it to you. And it doesn't mean you have to take it, but you got to fight for it.
Amen.
There it is.
All right, we're back. Now we're going to have a conversation about agents. And I've been waiting to have somebody like yourself on the show who's experienced as an agent in television and film. So, two birds with one stone here. Yeah, when we first talked, you gave me some great insight and, definitely gave me some things to chew on. And, I definitely wanted you to take and share, some of that insight with the listeners just based on your personal experience. And then me speaking as a fan of the industry, I've always been very fascinated with agents and what they do, and, which is a, a large part in why I have such an interest in entertainment and watching shows like Entourage, and even though Dwayne Johnson wasn't an agent, but a show like Baller, right, that was produced by the same people that produced Entourage. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, the the one who's done
Okay.
it all.
Well, let's start with the definition or my definition of what an agent does. So, or what an agent is, or what an agency is. So you have to kind of look at it as an agent as the middleman, the middle ground, the middleman between the business and the creative. And there's a marketplace. Agents have to understand what that marketplace is, how it functions in the larger agencies. There are many of young agents that go out and bring back information. They go out, literally go to the studios and walk the halls. They make telephone calls to and connect with and correspond with through email various studio executives, producers, other talent, and so on and so forth, so that they're gathering information about what's in the marketplace, what's available. And then the agents take that information and try to fill the needs of the marketplace and try to bring their clients into the marketplace. And then, with their knowledge base about what the marketplace is and where their clients fit in the marketplace, they're able to value the services of their marketplace, of their client. Then the trick is to get the buyers, the marketplace, to agree to, the dollars and cents or the various terms and conditions of employment. First of all, to hire, and then to agree to the terms. Along with that, there's something called career guidance. You want to be able to put your clients into a progression of projects that will help their career move forward. What happens that I have seen too many times is that the younger agents who matriculate up to a more mature agents and have developed clients that become somewhat in demand forget that they're the middleman and forget that it's not them that's in demand, that it's the client that's in demand, and that they want to think of themselves more important than the client. And that is the death knell of an agent. And you have to remember as an agent that you're in the service business and you 100% of the time, and you have to service them. And it runs the service them, your clients. You have to help them get what they want, but it's their world, and you can advise them, and you can consult with them, and you can suggest that this project is not good enough for them, or if this project, even though they're a little bit nervous about this project, it's a great project because it's got the right producers and directors, the studio, or the script is good, and that comes from your knowledge of the marketplace. The talent doesn't have that knowledge. Almost most of the talent doesn't have that knowledge because they're not day to day in reading scripts on all areas of the business, so they don't really know the full throttle, if you will, of the marketplace, and it's your job to kind of enlighten them and to let them know. And when they want more than you think you can get, you have to be careful about how you frame that with them, but because ultimately you want to put them to work to progress their career. But it requires having a certain tact to explain not only what the marketplace is, but where your clients fit into the marketplace. Some clients are unrealistic. I don't know. I was thinking about telling a story about the young actress who gets the role. I think I've shared that story with you. I don't know if you want me to tell that story or
Yeah,
not.
please, please,
Okay.
please.
Well, so to understand an agent, you really have to understand your role. And as I say, you're subservient to your clients. You're supposed to counsel them and so on and so forth. But clients are all over the place. And I've done Cliff this story about, it's more of a euphemism than story about, as a senior agent, you have a young ingenue who gets her first big role in a movie, and as all young ingenues are, they're often very self-obsessed. But as an agent, senior agent, you got to take them seriously and let them know you believe them. So you take them to dinner, and you go to the restaurant, and you sit down, and the 22-year-old young ingenue who's just got this role shows up 15 minutes late. Okay. And she comes rushing in, and she sits down, and you say, you want a drink? And she starts, me, 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 me. You want some salad? Me, 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 me. You want to order dinner? Me, 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 me. This goes on. Me, 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 me. Through the main course. Me, 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 me. You finish the main course. You want a cup? Me, me, me. Dessert? Me, me, me. Finally, after an hour and a half, me, 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 from this young ingenue, the check comes. And she looks at you and she says, enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think of me? And unless you are willing to do that,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're willing to be subservient to that talent, because it isn't about you, it's about them. And if you don't get that, then don't be an agent. That's the world. Now, I'm being exaggerating here, and there's great people who have a lot more, compassion for the agents that they, and friendships and loyalties and so on and so forth. But it is a business where you're in the service business. They pay you a lot of money, and they expect a lot from you. But it's worth it. It's a great opportunity to be and understand many aspects of the business. It's a good living, and you can get some important things done. You can help people get movies made.
So let me ask you this question here, but aside from yourself,
Mm.
who would you say is a standout agent, or was a standout agent in your opinion, and why so?
I'm not sure I'm going to answer that one. Rather than giving you some names, I think there over the years been many great agents, the guys that I started the company with. But it goes back to, Lou Wasserman was a great agent. He had before he ran and bought Universal, and Jules Stein, and the history of David Beagleman and Freddie Fields. There's been great agents all through the history of our business. So uh, I don't think I want to talk about somebody who's currently functioning or
Understood.
doesn't.
Understood.
Yeah, I think the history
Don't want to put
speaks for
anybody out
itself.
there.
No, I mean, you know, my opinion is not worth it.
Understood.
Everybody's good.
All right, we're back. I'll say
Hmm.
I've really been enjoying this. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you some questions so that the
Okay.
listeners and I can learn more about you, the things you do, and all the fun and exciting things that go along with that. So I'm going to
Hmm.
fire off with this first question. You said that the opportunities that you created for yourself may not exist now because companies now require college degrees and a certain amount of experience for entry level positions, I can only tell you how annoyed I've been by that. How does
Mm.
that make you feel about people who, like yourself, can figure it out, but don't have any experience or not the necessary experience and have no desire to attend college as well?
Well, I would like to slightly retract what I said. I think the opportunities exist to do kind of what I do. It isn't as wide open as it used to be because in today's era, there's such large companies that control so much of the business, whether it's the agencies or the studios or the streamers, and they require a level of, because of their size, a level of education, so on and so forth. But there's still the opportunity to start small by yourself, which I did, and build from there. It's not as easy, it's not as wide open as it was when I started. There was no monstrous big agencies. There was 3 networks. There was no cable. There was the studios, which you had to figure out how to access. But so I think it's the opportunities do exist, but they're not as robust as the potential is not as much is there, and the access to the industry is today is much more corporate than when I started. So backtrack again. You Can you repeat the last part of the question?
So how does that make you feel
Oh yeah,
about people?
how to
Yeah.
make feel. Well, I still think, going to go back to the first part of the conversation. I still think it's all about how aggressive, not in a negative sense, in a positive sense, you can be in out in putting it together. It makes me feel like that. So, for instance, I was on the phone with my nephew, kind of a step nephew, who wanted me to get involved because in a project because he didn't know any of the players. I turned to him and said, "Well, look, this is not something that I want to do, but that doesn't prohibit for you. You know who all the players are. Pick up the phone and call them and figure out how to get to them and keep at it. Are you saying to me that you can't figure out how to get somebody to read your script at this company? I just don't believe you. I just don't believe that's the truth." So I think part of what you were saying before, and then I slightly changed, the will is prevalent out there as it was. The business is much bigger, but I still think there's people who go out and grab themselves by the bootstraps and go make it happen every day, are not force fed, and recognize that it's about the will of your personality and the will of your desire to get something done. And just like in my day, there was plenty of people who just didn't have that will and were satisfied getting up every day and getting a paycheck. That's not was never my thing. Not that it's good or bad, but I think I think it doesn't. I don't have a value judgment on other people's desires. I can only say what I think one should do. And when you ask me if I'm going to do something, I'm going to say, "Well, you do it. You can do it. Why do I have to do it? You're as smart as I am. Go out there and do it."
My next question to you, having come from a family of immigrants that escaped Nazi Germany,
Mm-hmm.
how does it feel having come from such humble beginnings and to become so successful? What goes through your mind when you reflect on your life journey and legacy?
Well, I would argue with the premise of the question. I have never seen myself as successful. I have a twin sister, and one of the questions that people always ask you when you're a twin is, "So what's it like to be a twin?" And it took me about 50 years before I knew how to answer. And the answer that I finally came up with, well, before when I wasn't a twin, well, how the heck would I know what it's like not to be a twin? I've always been a twin. So it's just what I am. And I don't know any different than being raised with an immigrant family. What I was able to do was, learn from it and exploit it and use it and relish the cultural embodiment of that. Yeah, I guess I would argue for me that the death knell of success is believing that you're successful. Once you believe you're successful, there's nothing else to do. I've never believed I'm successful. I basically have always believed that I'm a failure. And then I just go from one failure to the next failure. The failures get bigger, and I succeed a little bit in putting them away. But, you know, and the great part for me is that I've learned to be okay with the failure, you know. It's okay. It's just the pathway to success, you know. And I don't know
Right.
how you define success. I feel kind of more closer to answering your question. I feel lucky that I was raised in an environment where we had a different culture than many of the children that I went to elementary school or high school with, who maybe that's what motivated me.
So I guess what goes through your mind when you do reflect on your life journey and legacy?
Well, I don't do a lot of time reflecting on it. I got other things I want to do. I'm not spending time thinking about the past. I'm not a person who has too many regrets in life. I have a few, very few. I try not to, because there's nothing I can do about stuff
Right.
that I fucked up about, you know?
Yeah, totally understood.
I'm kind of looking forward. I'm not over with yet. I haven't succeeded yet. I'm still the book hasn't been finished. The last chapter isn't written yet. As a matter of fact, the last 4 or 5 or 6, 7 chapters haven't been written.
I like the drive. I love it.
Mm.
So a lot of times when people think of Hollywood agency, they think of Ari Gold from HBO's Entourage, played by Jeremy Piven and loosely based on Hollywood agent, now CEO of Endeavor, Ari Emanuel. From your personal experience as an agent, how relatable did you find the character Ari Gold?
Well, I think you used the proper word, loosely based. I don't think it's anything else like that. Other than that, I think it's loosely based. You know, I watch the show, but not all that often. There's a show on Call My Agents. It's a French show that's on Netflix, I think it is. And a lot of people who have watched it and ask, what do I think of it? Well, it's kind of good. It doesn't really have your day-to-day kind of life. You know, you as an agent, you get up, you start your day between 5:30 and 6. You got to work out to get some health going, and you're in a staff meeting at 8:00, and you have 20 people asking you a lot of different questions, and then get back to your desk. You try to read the trades, and you end up. In my day, it's a little bit different now. End up with 250 telephone calls a day, and then you're fielding a lot of incoming, and you're trying to create outgoing. So that you're not just getting sucked into the phone on other people's issues. You're dealing with creating new business. And you don't get calls all day long to tell you how great things are. You get calls, there's a problem, you got to fix it. There's this, there's that, he didn't show up on time, he's late, he hates the script, they're not going to give me enough money, whatever it may be. And you've got to deal with that problem all day long. That's what the job is. It seems glamorous, and there is some glamour to it. But after you've been to your 75th screening, it ain't glamorous. It's work. After you've been to your 200th cocktail of a young actor, it ain't glamorous. It's just not. After you've walked the studios for 25 years, it's just not glamorous. It's just work. It's hard work. It's like everybody else. Oh, it's different now because a lot of it is, well, during COVID it's different, but a lot of it is done over emails. I mean, I remember when we got a fax machine. That was a big deal. One of my companies, So it's really different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't imagine. I was in an agency 18 months ago. I had a meeting before COVID, and it was so interesting. It was William Morris, actually. And I was walking down the divider where all of the assistants were, and the phones weren't ringing, and everybody was on their computer. The image of my time is that the phones would be ringing constantly, and the secretary, John on 2, Steve on 3, that would be going on. That was not going on there. So, I think it's changed a lot. It's a lot of correspondence by email and text and so on and so forth. And then, the whole COVID thing has changed things a lot with the Zooms and so on.
Yeah. Okay. That was a great answer.
Okay.
My final question, and this is the big question.
Uh-oh. Okay.
You're one of the founding members of United Talent Agency,
Yes.
one of the big three talent agencies in Hollywood.
Yes.
UTA turned 30 this past January. What were your thoughts about the agency during your tenure? And does UTA still remain to be what you guys envisioned it to be 30 years ago?
In the first 5 or 6 years, as all companies that are merger based, which was what UTA was. It was a merger of the company that I had for about 15 years with two other partners, and a company that was a few years old, and there was six of us partners, and I think our ambitions were very big. I don't. I think that it has been realized. I think that they have done a magnificent job, and it's a great agency. I also think that the agency business today is substantively different than the business we started out 30 years ago. There were no streamers. The internet was just in its infancy. Cable was just coming online, was online for several years, but you don't. The studios still ran things. You didn't have Fox News. You didn't Fox. There wasn't a Fox. It was owned by, in that day, Marvin Davis. There was no fourth network. Jamie Kellner put that together. So the revenue streams were not as broad as they are now. When you think about IP, which was a word we didn't think about in those days, how many ways you can exploit it. Recently I was looking on the 10 most exploited IPs in the media world, and I think 3 or 4 of them were video games. 3 or 4 of them were, books, Harry Potter, and all that's, when you think about it, that was originally a book and movies and video games and theme parks and so on and so forth. That type of infrastructure that allowed you to exploit content IP in multiple arenas didn't exist. And the agencies have had to change to adapt that, to have specific departments that can deal with that type of IP. Just a different world than it was 30 years ago when we started the agency, which was principally actors, writers, directors, and television and motion pictures. That was the principal business. The music business has exploded in the last 30 years beyond just the concerts with, the streaming and the merchandising and so on and so forth. And so it's just a completely different world than it was at that time. And I would say that UTA has more than realized what our vision was 30 years ago.
Based on what you just shared, I can definitely agree with that. And
Right.
I would imagine that has to be a great feeling. So
good for everybody. Everybody made a buck at it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay.
That was awesome. That was awesome, and I really enjoyed having you on the show, and I mean that when I say that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity, Cliff.
Yeah. I'm honored to have you as a guest as well. So definitely thank you again. I know the listeners are going to enjoy this one, and listeners, thank you guys for continuing to again like, share, subscribe, and spread the word about the Sane Show, and continuing to tune in. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And you guys are listening to Sane Show about nothing and everything. And until next time, we're out.
Talk to you soon, Cliff.